What's the worst thing a first date said to you that made you think red flag?
Mr.Reddit.
I am in love with my fuck buddy, and I can't promise I won't cheat on you with her. Saw them couple of years later walking hand in hand. Good for them.
Why even date? That's nuts.
The whole fuck buddy /FWB situation can easily become confusing in a lot of cases. I imagine it was probably one of those classic FWB scenarios where one of them really wasn't sure if they wanted to be in a relationship at all, but knew they wanted to have sexy fun times with someone they can trust. The other one, as mentioned, was in love with their fuck buddy but knew in their head that it was only supposed to be a fuck buddy and not a lover, and so they do some dating to see if it changes their mind or feelings at all. I dunno, seems kinda normal for a lot of people to catch some feelings for people they hook up with regularly. Other people seem to have a much easier time detaching the physical pleasure from any deeper emotional feelings. Don't forget the semantic implications. They have feelings for one another and may even be exclusive, but one or both of them are commitment phobes or are just afraid of relationship terminology, so don't call it that. Then for extra fun, you can throw in some unidentified or unresolved gender dysphoria into the mix. They're basically dating or in a relationship but identifying as, or being misgendered as, a gendered term like girlfriend or boyfriend gives one of them the ick, so they stick to gender-neutral terms like FWB or fuck buddy.
On a first date, they looked me dead in the eye and said, "I've never really been wrong about anything." The way they said it, so seriously, made me realize they probably wouldn't handle disagreements well. Big red flag.
That's when you ask them, "So, do you think we're good for a second date?" When they answer yes, you can let them know that they are wrong today.
How about we go carpet shopping with my ex who is still living with me for financial reasons?
LOL, I had to live with my ex for about 3 months post-breakup because the post-COVID rental market was absolutely ass. I would not wish that hell upon my worst enemy. Some girls were still okay with it somehow. I ended up dating one of them for about half a year. She ended up dumping me via text while she was drunk at a bar, almost mirroring the breakup with my ex.
He said, "You're lucky you're here with me because anyone else would probably take advantage of you right now." We were alone on a beach. Scary.
Yeah, it is pretty scary to think that of all the people in the world you chose the only guy who wouldn't capitalize on any and every moment to SA someone. I mean, what are the odds? You could have easily have gotten in trouble.
It's the same reason why many job applications/interviews ask questions like, "I think most people steal from their jobs sometimes." Because people who regularly steal things think everyone does it. If a man assumes that any man would feel a strong urge to rape you, it's because he assumes everyone thinks like he does.
Can you buy me some gift cards so my kids stay quiet?
We were going back and forth with asking questions, so I threw out, "Ever been arrested?" Thinking he'd be surprised, say no, and we'd move on, but nope. He says yes and goes on to explain what it was for, domestic violence. Crazy what some people will admit. Had a guy tell me about how his last relationship ended after he became jealous because she was texting another guy, not cheating, and then he proceeded to absolutely destroy her apartment. Hyped it up that it meant that he was just loyal. I promptly ended the date and left.
Had a guy tell me about that on our first date. But he was clear he felt awful about it, explained what happened and accepted his responsibility. We dated a good long while, super nice guy and a good partner to me. I totally agree it's a red flag, but the fact he wanted to be upfront about it, didn't badmouth the other person, accepted it and tried to better himself cancelled out the flag for me.
Reminds me when a girl asked if I wanted kids. I jokingly said, 12, I want a soccer team and one alternate. I thought it was a good joke. Her eyes lit up and she explained she wanted a huge family too. She had names and everything ready. I had an aunt with 9 and another with 19. Hard pass. But I hope she found someone to give her a huge family.
Once had a Tinder date inform me I'd suggested her burner bar for our drinks date. A bit later, she told me that she'd already chosen the names for our babies. She did this very loudly. Imagine a woman speaking loudly enough for all the bar staff to hear that I'd picked the bar she takes dates to 'cause it's close to her home. But she doesn't like it enough to be sad if something happens, and she can never come back to it. And then even more loudly, getting agitated and almost yelling about what names she's picked out for her children, that one, the entire bar could hear. That was one of 2 times in my life when a bartender has closed my tab before I asked.
Once had a Tinder date inform me I'd suggested her burner bar for our drinks date. A bit later, she told me that she'd already chosen the names for our babies. She did this very loudly. Imagine a woman speaking loudly enough for all the bar staff to hear that I'd picked the bar she takes dates to cause it's close to her home, but she doesn't like it enough to be sad if something happens and she can never come back to it. And then even more loudly, getting agitated and almost yelling about what names she's picked out for her children, that one, the entire bar could hear. That was one of 2 times in my life when a bartender has closed my tab before I asked.
When I first tried OkCupid like 15 years ago, the woman came up to me and looked nothing like her pictures. She had a huge coat on that had these 4 huge pockets on the front, and she said, "I'd hug you, but my pockets are full of broken glass." She explained that she had to clean some up before her shift at work ended, and then she had to rush to meet me. Probably should have said something, but I was young and wanted to be polite, so we wound up seeing one of the Harry Potter movies together. It turned out she was a Potter fanatic, so after the movie, this woman, laden with sharp garbage, told me all about her fanfictions. Good times.
Did you ask any follow-up questions? It makes absolutely no sense, and it's killing me. Why would you clean up glass by putting it in your pockets? How much of a rush could someone possibly be in to not take like 30 seconds to dump the glass out? Is the work story just a cover for some sort of pocket glass kink?
He started asking weird questions, like what fabric would you choose to recover a patio set? And things like that. It turned out he was interviewing me for the role of wife. At the end of the date, he announced I checked all the requirements and we needed to plan for me to quit my job and become his girlfriend. He would pay for everything. He was the CFO of a big company, and he couldn't have a girlfriend/wife that worked. I needed to also find a cause to volunteer to. These all told with a straight face. I was speechless. I told him it was time to go, and we could talk later. Then I messaged him telling him I felt no chemistry, which was true, and I didn't think a relationship would work. He insisted and continued to message me for a while, insisting I was perfect and needed to be his wife.
I just want to make it clear that I want to be married by the end of the year. I move fast, so if you're not down with that, then this might not work. I was, in fact, not down with that.
Blind date. 20-something girl shows up dressed like James Dean, with cigs rolled up in her shirt sleeve, talking like Marge's chain-smoking sisters. I'm not sure why I'm here. Once my boyfriend gets out of jail, he's going to divorce his wife and we are getting married. Good luck with that, I'm out.
Had a dude tell me all about how his court-ordered anger management therapy was bullshit and he was getting off the meds as soon as the therapy ended. Edit to add. No, he never told me why he got ordered to go. Got kinda cagey about the whole thing and I didn't want to push too hard since he was giving off pretty strong, already off my meds vibes.
Every year for my birthday, me and my friends like to go in the woods and do a lot of drugs. I hope that doesn't bother you. I was like 18 and not even old enough to drink yet. This was said after he had taken my hair out of my hair clip at the table and sniffed it. Our first and only date was at Applebee's and he brought his best friend. I had to pay for both of them. Edit. Forgot to mention that the best friend was a girl who didn't speak and just glared at me the whole time. I also had to drive both of them back to his house.
She talked me into going to the gambling boat on our first date after we had a nice dinner. She proceeded to lose 3 times what I lost in less than an hour. At the time I was an addiction counselor and saw too many signs. I never thought about a second date, not once.
My ex-boyfriend is mentally unstable. I'm pretty sure he shot my last date in the back of the head, execution style, but don't worry, police are still looking for him.
My parents have already made up the spare room for you. You should come and stay for the weekend.
I was on a date with a woman who was getting into a really negative spiral of conversation about how she was going to school for nursing, but hated people. I somewhat desperately tried to turn things around by asking what she liked most about being a vet tech. I figured it'd be an easy, mood-lifting answer about hugging furry animals. I was wrong. She told me she really liked it when she was cleaning tartar off dog canines, and it all came off in one chunk. The bar was empty, and the bartender had been quietly eavesdropping at the far end of the bar. I watched him double over and convulse with silent laughter, as I fought to keep a straight face myself.
To be fair, this tartar thing is super common among vet techs, and it's also super satisfying.
I can imagine that, especially because she may well be on the autism spectrum. It's just that she was killing the vibe like she was trying to crash the plane, and it was obvious that I was trying to pull up and save it. I lobbed that softball question over the plate, and she fired back with that spectacular curveball. I for sure thought the date was done. I waited a couple minutes so that it wouldn't look like I was running away from the conversation, and give the bartender a second to pull it together, then excused myself to the restroom specifically to pace around wondering WTF was happening. When I got back, either the bartender or my date had closed the tab, and my bill was sitting at my seat. I want to think it was the bartender being a bro, but it could have been her. As we walked out of the bar, she surprised me by inviting me back to her place. We'd matched on OkCupid. She was a 20-something hipster doing the Anais Nin/Diablo Cody try to start a sex blog thing, and her OkCupid profile was her bragging about her deep-throating skills, and actively soliciting dick pics to be sent to her Snapchat to apply. I hadn't gotten laid in a while, and nobody could deep-throat me, so I decided why not, and messaged her. She was in, and sent me a video of her effortlessly swallowing a dildo. I asked the dimensions of the dildo. I was a little girthier, but I didn't want to talk myself out of a blowjob. So I just filed that away in my head, and we made plans for this date. I say all of that to say this: I was conflicted, but I was also horny. I waffled for as long as I could get away with, then agreed, and went to her apartment. Turns out that she was even prouder of her DT skills than implied to date, but also that the extra girth was indeed a problem. What happens when someone's hinging their identity on one sexual gimmick, and suddenly they meet a challenge they can't overcome? She got desperate. She slammed me into her tonsils over and over, hard and fast. And with every thrust, her sharp molars dragged across me. Felt like she was cutting me to ribbons. I had to stop her, and check for blood. She was too upset at her failure, and I was too traumatized and in pain to do much more than a bit of half-hearted fucking to fix the mood. Neither of us came. Well, I can't remember if I got her off, but I didn't, and we called it a day. The next day her Twitter account she was sex blogging with posted a self-affirmation, haughtily reminding herself that not all bodies are compatible, and that's okay. We didn't talk again for something like 7 years, when she matched me on Tinder doing the both of us swiping right to see what happens. And if anyone wants something to happen, both are too shy to say anything. She wondered if I remembered her. I said absolutely, that was a legendary dating story. She felt bad, thought it was a failure. I said an epic fail can be the best kind of legendary, smooth talker, right? We talked about some stuff like the kink scene after I disclosed that I'd run into her profile there at one point. I brought up the elephant in the room of both of us awkwardly dancing around the convo, and what were we looking for? Nothing, she said, but also went on a tangent about how she loves giving oral even more than sex. I stumbled for a response, her that would signal my enthusiastic approval without sounding thirsty or offensive. Communication fail. I disclosed that through her FET profile, I'd also found her Reddit profile, part for disclosure, part intending, if I could do it without being creepy, to complement her immense personal growth in the intervening years, as evidenced by her Reddit account stories. We got sidetracked trying to do damage control, cause she couldn't imagine me accidentally running into Reddit info on her FET profile. Her usernames matched at one point. And then, talking about kink community politics such, I got a little too ranty about how much I hate one of her ex-partners, who's a GWC who exploits young girls, and thinks he's God's gift not only to women, but to culture, politics, etc. Total narcissist/sociopath. So I managed to both creep and piss her off by accident. The conversation really needed someone to ask what my favorite thing about being a vet tech was. To my credit, I did voluntarily apologize for my behavior, but the conversation was pretty dead at that point. She blocked me on FetLife. I never know how to handle disclosing information asymmetry when meeting people online. I told her, cause I figured it'd be more honest and direct to tell her. Then give her my info to even things out. But even best intentions will give women the ick, and I feel bad that I never did get that chance to congratulate her on her progress and personal growth. She really did a great glow up in those 7-ish years. Sorry, you didn't ask for an update with your comment, but I guess the Adderall wore off and I got rambly.
Told me it's so nice someone asked me out. I haven't been on a date since I got out of prison. 5 years for aggravated robbery, and she was a mean drunk.
I met a woman out of the blue in a park while our kids were playing. We talked for a while, then as we're leaving she says I never do this, but here's my number, let's keep on touch. I was incredibly flattered, it really made my day. We text frequently over the next few weeks and start making plans to meet up, but it's difficult as her vehicle isn't roadworthy to travel the highway and my schedule was really hectic at the time. Texts start getting strange, then stranger. I told her about my job. I worked in an analytical lab at the time, and she begins filling me in on her fantasy, that I'm her sexy scientist and she wants me to build a time machine to travel to the Middle Ages where she is working as a bar wench. She was a fairly petite woman, but in her fantasy, she is specific that she weighs 350 pounds. And she has never taken a bath. And it was my job to give her first bath. That was the last real conversation we had, never made it to a first date, but was followed by several months of periodic ramble texts about her feelings for me and how I was wrong to stop talking with her. People are weird.
Thank you all for watching. If you are interested, subscribe and watch other videos.